For the first time here on News Central Television, Breakfast Central is going to be airing for 3 hours. And no, it's not April Fool. Welcome to Breakfast Central. I am Olive Emodi, and riding for the next 3 hours with me are my two distinguished gentlemen, Joe Hansen and Benga Aborowa. Good morning, gentlemen.
I think I need to walk in with a swag, like
in a Kasongo way.
Wow, you got Kasongo on air? Really? Yes. Welcome, everyone.
Morning.
I remember this time last year, we did April Fool for our audience. I don't know if we're going to do
Yeah.
April Fool this year.
But it could be April Fool's.
No, it's not.
No,
This
it's
one
not.
is not April Fool, we promise
It's
you.
for real.
Maybe.
You're getting the full package, 3 hours.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it. You'll
That's
love
right.
it.
That's right.
I mean, they'll love it. Won't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
3 hours.
yeah.
You
But you
get
have to say it that
3
way.
hours for the price of 2. It used
I
to be
see.
2 hours. Now we're giving them an extension.
Absolutely.
Can you even
That's-
think about the
that's
fact
how
that
much we love
yesterday
them.
when we opened the phone lines, one of our guests called in and said, "You are doing a great job, but you need to extend the time."
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, in under 24 hours, we've now extended the time to show you that Breakfast Central listens.
Yeah,
Actually, it
listen.
was in the works. It wasn't just about yesterday.
I agree.
Anyway, well, let's start today's conversation with the latest reports reaching us that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan is meant to visit Kogi today. Interestingly, it would seem that there have been moves to stop her visit or moves to prevent her visit because there have been conversations about rallying potentially happening, and Governor Usman Ododo is totally against it. And we've seen the reactions on social media. People are condemning him, saying that he has no right to do it. You can see the flyer.
You know, it's very similar to what happened with the declaration of a state of emergency in River State. The president is the chief security officer of the country. Usman Ododo is the chief security officer of Kogi State. He said he got security reports. Imagine the sorts of things that you could use security. That security report is almost a blanket statement to cover everything. You could just say, oh, we had some people are planning attacks, so therefore you use it to disrupt your opponent's rally. We would like to see those security reports.
See there, I mean,
what's that fix?
they don't. Do they really have a right to show? us, to be
Well, the reports, and a lot of persons have said that this report is coming way too quick. You know, why is it that the report came
A day
before
Yes.
she was about having a homecoming? Well, look at number 4 here. If you look on the screen, it says in Kogi Central, intelligence at our disposal points to the fact that some elements are planning to stage some violent rallies in the guise of political and religious agitations. This is to create a platform for wanton destruction and breakdown of law and order. And it's no news, or you wouldn't wonder why everything is happening at the same time. This continues to bring clarity to what some persons have been saying again. And when I mean some persons, I mean those on Natasha's side, Senator Natasha's side, and those from the political space, where they've said that it's looking too easy for you to pin. You don't need to be a detective. You could just pinpoint that something is about to happen. In other words, is it a case of trying to just remove Senator Natasha from the National Assembly and then get someone else to actually take her seat? It's
and
just
who will that someone else?
yeah.
Be? I mean,
well,
Maybe the White Lion, but if you know who the White Lion is, you can add the name.
why don't you use this
suggested it's the
particular
White
photo
Lion.
of Usman Ododo looking at her that way?
And you know, another angle is that, I mean, for those who are speaking on behalf of the Kogi State government, they said, look, it's not just Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's rally, it's a carpet ban on all rallies. So even if you are planning religious rallies, just for this period where they have that intelligence report that we're not privy to of some elements.
Who is planning religious?
Who are
rally?
the elements?
Let's not deceive ourselves. Whatever this is, in a way, many people would see the correlation between the rallies and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan coming into the state for the homecoming. However, whilst the government says that they recognize the people's rights to freedom of movement and expression, they also have to prioritize the safety of citizens.
True.
And whilst people have criticized Governor Usman Ododo for what he has done, I saw a tweet that was very, very interesting. He did a comparative analysis between the decision of Usman Ododo and the statement by Doye Diri of Bayelsa. Remember that the Bayelsa state governor had said that they should not bring any rallies to Bayelsa state as well. And he said, look, it's very convenient for all of you to decide what side of the divide you are on. That in Bayelsa, you're saying, you know what, no rallies because you of course don't like Nyesom Wiki. And now you are saying, why would you stop the rally? because you are Team Natasha. So you cannot approbate and reprobate.
So,
you have to choose
can't
one
pick
side.
and choose, yeah.
Exactly.
let's understand. Are we playing politics with states now?
And
Oh, yes.
security.
And
yes.
security?
Oh,
or
yes.
And the
are
right
we-
to gather.
Is this what Nigerian politics has all of a sudden deteriorated to?
I mean, there's an element of childishness in all
Complete.
of this, to say the truth. I know on the face value, they will always give an excuse. Like when the State Assembly was bombed, you know, integrity tests, we had to bring it down and all of that. But we need to do better with our politics and politicking. We need to be matured about it. This is not the way to go about it.
Excuse me.
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
I just think that at the end of the day, regardless of what side of the divide you're on, Benga says he thinks it's childish, and I just think at the end of the day, it's politics that we're playing. We're playing politics with the life of Nigerian citizens. We're playing politics with the safety of Nigerian citizens and the needs of Nigerian citizens. So again, are citizens allowed to rally? Are citizens not allowed to rally? And we've seen in many cases where rallies have been restricted. Bring it back home to Lagos State, for example. During the End Bad Governance protest, there were strict guidelines that were given because they got intelligence reports as well. So basically, intelligence reports that would have been maybe founded on what happened on the 20th of October in 2020. So again, we will see how this will play out.
Okay.
9 a.m. is just 2 hours from now. So
Well, bear in mind that Senator Natasha herself is somewhere within Lagos.
Lagos.
You know, so if she was planning a trip to go there,
go fly.
They may have told Madam,
Don't worry.
it's not safe. Don't bother coming now. But what I'm interested in actually is the fact that INEC has said that they will be having a referendum to seal the fate of suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And that referendum would actually decide if she's going to return back to the assembly, or she would from there, you know, find her way back to Kogi
I mean,
State.
and this is massive news, to say the least, because if you look at people have always said that recalling a senator in Nigeria, they tried it with Senator Dino Melaye.
that was the closest
It's
that we
like
had.
a needle passing, what's that?
Camel passing through the eye of
passing
a
through
needle.
the eye of a needle. And for INEC and everybody involved to be able to even get to a stage where INEC is about to conduct a referendum says a lot about the level of efficiency or lack of, and the politics in Nigeria, the desperation. Because how did INEC verify those 250,000 signatures? Email addresses were resubmitted in less than 24 hours. There's so many things that are wrong with the entire
What
process.
INEC cannot do
does
does not exist.
Cannot do does not exist.
It's the latest development. What we are waiting to see is, should suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan be suspended and also rather be let go or be called back from her constituency? It's going to set a precedent that Nigerians should brace up for, and it's going to be something that we would start seeing a different side to our.
There can be a positive,
politics,
or
you know.
there could actually be a
doubt
positive
it.
angle to it, a positive
What's the
and a
positive angle?
negative angle to it.
Go ahead.
The positive angle would be that we will see the possibility, because we've never been able to conduct a successful recall of a senator. So we'll see the possibility that it actually can happen. And then some of the people who are there that have no business being there, you are probably thinking, you're watching and thinking of certain names.
so
you know that you can now actually recall them. And then maybe it would make the senators sit up knowing that.
That's a best case scenario.
I mean,
Yeah.
Their opponents might abuse it and just initiate the recall
That's it.
process for the
That's it.
sake
so
of,
that's
I
why I
don't
said
like
there's
your
a
face.
positive
Exactly.
and the
And
negative
they will
angle.
abuse it, and we have a tendency of doing that in this part.
So INEC, I think INEC has a big decision to make. INEC needs to really scrutinize. They need to take their time to do it right. If they do not handle it well, like I said, it's going to set a precedent for what we may not be ready for in years to
Exactly.
come.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Away
we will
from,
find out in a few hours. What
Kogi State. And I like what Joe said. He said, who are the elements?
Yep.
Who are the elements that are going to forestall trouble in Kogi State? So
you-
in that case,
if you ask
let
me-
me check the periodic table.
Let's go away from Kogi State and come back to
To
Lagos.
Lagos, yes. Lagos drivers must obey speed limits or face consequences. I mean, Lagos State is the center of excellence, and I believe they're one of the few states that are serious about enforcing speed limits on their roads. The Lagos State government has issued A firm warning to motorists stressing that speed limits on designated roads are legally binding and must be obeyed for public safety. The fine is 50,000 naira.
Is that fine strong enough?
Yes. And I also want them to enforce, I think Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, will be one of the few countries where drinking and driving is not seriously enforced. I've not seen policemen conducting breathalyzer tests on motorists. It's very dangerous.
The person that is conducting the test,
They need to conduct.
they need to conduct test on that person. So that's the problem.
Why are you guys laughing? Eh?
No, but
This is a serious matter.
Bega, it is a serious matter.
Very serious matter.
Our laugh is not meant to, downplay the seriousness and the importance of it, but my laugh is actually to actually state clearly that people who are to enforce the law,
The irony.
we all know, they end up breaking the law. So we'll take, for instance, you mentioned breathalyzer. Have you seen one?
No, not in this part.
Hardly. Because would they maintain, would you
I mean,
allow
even
them
one-way
bring-
traffic.
Would you allow
You've
them
seen law
bring
enforcement
breathalyzer close to you?
follow one way regularly, break
That's
the
it.
law.
I think one of the laws that should be set alongside with this is a fine to be placed on public transport. The dampened drivers, no
They
more
don't.
mullah,
It's like they have a
use the
different
cops. They
set
don't
of law.
use.
They don't even.
They just park
they
on the
have
road.
immunity.
so
They
Immunity.
jump traffic lights. They're so dangerous. They don't have brake lights. They have nothing, and they keep plying the same roads
Same
with
road.
me that have played roadworthiness
Thank you.
certificate.
It's as if
It's not fair.
it's as if when they are coming, the road safety guys.
Look the other
respect to
way.
them. They just say, move
They
on.
can't be bothered.
Move on.
Yeah.
So
They
I
just say
think
move on,
that
move on.
I don't think it's an absence of laws. The Lagos State traffic law is a very well-rounded document, a well-rounded law, I think. I don't think it's an absence of law as much as the absence of implementation. The structures that would guarantee implementation and that will deter further, what's the word? Commission of crimes, right? Further committing of crimes, right? So I don't think we have enough deterrence. I don't think that people have impunity because they can get away with a lot of this. So I think that's where the challenge is. And you're very right. You've raised very valid points because you see your regular salon vehicle as you're
Private
getting there because
cars.
it looks neat. They're telling you park. Bring your this one, bring your that one, bring this document, bring that document. Yet you are seeing a truck fighting for its life. Just yesterday evening on Lekki Ekpe Expressway, I saw one that was like this. Like it was fighting for his life. And we say, what is this
Yes.
truck
Doing on the road.
doing on the road? And the truck had load.
It's endangering other road users.
It's just I couldn't film it. The load was already tilting to a corner. Any slight issue, and that thing can topple over and fall on another salon vehicle. So it's just really, I think, implementation that is our challenge. But I do think that this is a positive step in the right direction because the Nigerians who we complain about not being able to obey traffic rules, they did not born you well to go abroad and disobey traffic laws.
No, they don't.
We go abroad and we comport ourselves properly.
There's a document we put on the screen. Sorry to butt in, Olive. There's a document we put on the screen. If we're going to have that document, the white one, yes, exactly. I want us to look at one of the lines there as concerning this information. Let's go down. Okay, let me see if we could scroll down a bit. Yes, keep going. Responding to a caller who inquired whether commercial vehicles are exempted from the enforcement initiative, Engineer Fashola clarified that an average of 50 commercial buses are apprehended daily for various traffic violations. How come we still have plenty of them on the road?
It's a lot, too, honestly. We need a lot more.
And we commend them. If this can be done, listen, Lagos prides itself as the commercial center. It is the economic capital, whether we like it or not. And we always say it is a smart city. Many times you hear the governor say Lagos is a smart city. Therefore, if it's a smart city, then it needs to start to look and feel like one.
Well, I think that I certainly think
with
this is a positive step in the right direction. The speed limits are everywhere. For example, when you're applying Third Mainland Bridge, you will see the speed limit is 80 km/h. Certain parts of Lagos, 60. I think I saw, I think, somewhere within Ikeja, it was about 60 kilometers per hour. So it's just basically, let me
Anyway,
explain.
And KKs should obey traffic laws.
I was right.
So that's another one.
Murtala Mohammed International Airport, 60 kilometers per hour. We have the speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour on Ekpe Expressway, Oshodi Apapa Expressway. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour to 60 kilometers per hour. Ikorodu Road, 50 kilometers per hour to 60 kilometers per hour. Nuruddin Olowo Popo Road, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah,
60 kilometers per hour. Allen Avenue, 50 kilometers per hour. And we have Lekki Koyi Link Bridge, 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. Ojota Bridge, 50 kilometers per hour. Mobolaji Bank Anthony Way, 60 kilometers per hour. Alakpere Ogudu Road, 80 kilometers. And then Third Milan Bridge, 80 kilometers per hour.
Anyway,
so
I'm happy.
I think it's just important as you're driving, you're also looking out for the
This will
signs.
slow Benga down.
No, I'm not a fast driver. I'm a very
Look
careful.
out for
But
all the signs.
naturally, Joe, some of the roads, like Allen Avenue, for example, there are portions that are very patchy and bumpy and bad. So you will
Why are
naturally
you,
slow
of all the roads I
down.
listed out, why did you pick out Allen Avenue?
I grew up around Allen Avenue. I live around Allen
you-
Avenue. My mom lives around Allen
Oh,
Avenue.
that's
So
nice.
it's a regular route that I apply. So I still pass.
Olive, why did you ask that
Allen
Oh, because
Avenue
I mean, I remember the song. I think it's Word MC that sang that
Yeah,
Allen Avenue
Allen
song.
used
Okay,
to
I
be
thought you were asking
like
for
Lekki back
Based
then.
on research.
Research.
Yeah.
I don't do research on the, within that
okay.
act.
That research as investigative journalist.
Oh, well, I haven't.
Yeah. So
Despite repeated calls for urgent intervention, waste management in the Federal Capital Territory appears to have gone from bad to worse. Heaps of refuse continue to pile up across satellite communities, posing severe environmental and health risk, with residents fleeing abandoned and feeling abandoned by the authorities. This morning, we have a report by our correspondent, Joseph, who revisited the affected areas and now files in this report.
Almost 2 months after our initial reports, the waste situation in parts of the Federal Capital Territory has worsened, with piles of refuse that once lined street corners now growing into towering mounds. Roadsides have become dumping grounds. The overwhelming stench and health risks have turned everyday life into a struggle for many residents and business owners.
It's as if we are in punishment here. Understand? It's not quite long that I came here anyway. It's not up to 1 year. I've complained about this waste for over 8 months now, and they have not given us any good replies. So as you can see, I'm model person. This shop, there's another person that is here, but it doesn't come because of this waste.
All those Aboko here, maybe they think that they are helping us. They will just put smoke, everyday fire. We that will stay in this environment, you cannot be able to do anything. The smoke is too much.
In Karo, Jukwe and Kurudu, as well as other satellite communities within the FCT, the situation remains there with large portions of road taken by refuse. Residents and business owners near these dump sites, forced to inhale the putrid smell daily, are pleading with authorities to relocate waste collection points to less populated areas.
Even though of our health and other things. So if government can help us and put it out from this area, we'll be happy about it.
They beg that I will beg government, maybe they help us to come and pack this, or they should change this thing to another place, so that I should come up for where people there.
This is a business area. They should have a site for dumping sites. So they should just take everything away from me, because as you can see, this is a business area. There's no situation about it. They should just find a permanent dumping site.
With the risks of environmental contamination and the outbreak of new diseases increasing daily, health professionals warn that if urgent measures are not taken, the situation could escalate into a full-blown public health crisis.
The content of what is contained in the refuse will determine the extent of damage that it will have on the lungs, it will have on the respiratory tract. So it is not actually ideal. And like I mentioned, airborne infection from coughing, in fact, it could even cause waterborne infection, because some of the refuse can, pass down to the drainage and the drinking water.
The call for sustainable waste management system in the FCT has never been louder, but with the worsening situation, Residents say immediate action is needed. In Abuja for News Central, Yusuf.
And there we have it. Updates from the FCT. Will continue to dig deeper into that story and bring more reports in that regard. But we'll be moving away from the FCT now, heading to Edo State, where Governor Monday Okpebholo and his counterpart in Kano, Abah, Kabir Yusuf, have visited families of the victims in Kano, killed by local vigilantes in Uromi, Edo State. Both governors are currently touring Torankawa village in the Bunkore area of Kano State, including Garko, Kibia, and Rano local government areas of the state. The killings have continued to raise widespread condemnation following gruesome pictures of some of them being burnt alive.
Some of the men say Allah Yaseni, obey Allah Yaseni, Jia Allah Yaseni, Bakaba, Ama Allah ya Baka, Allah ya Allah ya Baka, Bakaba, so, wallahi, zai samu justice. Zai samu justice. Yanzu akwai arrest 14 persons. Suna the police. Inshallah, komi daidai. Wannan shine gwamnan Edo wanda ya zo ya ganku ya ba ku hakuri. Abin da muke magana abu ne kaman guda uku ko hudu. Na ɗaya, a sama mana haƙƙin 'yan uwanmu da aka kashe. Na biyu, a tabbata an kama waɗannan tsinannun mutanen a zamanin. Na uku, a tabbatar da cewa an biya diya kamar yadda dokar musulunci ta ce. Amma abin da muka yi niyya a wannan yanki tun da ba fin ƙarfin mu aka yi ba kuma nuna mana wani tsarin jiki za a yi ba, da sai mun ɗauki mataki akan wannan al'amari. Amma saboda darajar mai girma gwamna da mutuncinsa da kuma koyi irin na jagoranci da ike mana, da yadda shi mai girma gwamnan Edo ya ɗauki matakai, ya kalli mutuncin gwamnanmu da ma'amalarsu, da yadda ya zauna a Kano ga ma'amalar mu ta mutanen Kano, ya ɗauki mataki iri daban-daban tun daga kan rushe ita wannan ƙungiya da ɗaukan matakai iri daban-daban na biyan diyar 'yan uwan nan namu da aka kashe. Wannan shi yasa muka kai zuciya nesa, muka haƙura kuma muka yi addu'a waɗannan 'yan uwa namu da suka gabata Allah ya gafarta musu.
That's the update concerning that story, concerning the Uromi killings, and what Nigerians are indeed saying online would be further explored when we go straight to what Nigerians are saying. But this conversation doesn't stop here. Like you saw in the video, the governor of Edo State, His Excellency Okpebholo, spoke to the people there, having taken a trip to meet with them, of course, shares the condolences with them. I'm sure Oliver and Benga would agree that that's one smart thing to do.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, there are two sides to that conversation, and I'm just going to, like you said, we'll take what Nigerians are saying. I've seen two sides, two sentiments. Those who are from northern Nigeria, particularly, some of them applaud the governor's move and telling him, thank you and well done on doing what is right. But we've seen those in southern Nigeria saying the times when southerners were killed or southerners were killed, how many northern governors did we see paying condolence visits to these southerners? You know, unfortunately, we can't deny the fact that this story has now been laced with religious and ethnic colorations, and people are advocating against it. In fact, if you see the way that a number of Edo State indigenous are very upset at Governor Monday Okpebholo for going to visit the Kano State victims.
I mean, there's a saying that uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. If
Yeah.
you're not in the shoes, you can't tell what's in the shoes.
Absolutely.
Imagine if there was a further breakdown, reprisal attacks somewhere else, and it could actually, they might not, because the people that committed this crime, they've either been arrested or they disappeared into thin air, and it's innocents that will suffer. Because you heard a gentleman there speaking in Kano from our report saying they were going to prove that they were not cowards, but it's a good thing the governor came here. So they were planning reprisal attacks, and it would have been on innocent people. We cannot preempt, or we don't know the future. We can't assume or use hypothetical situations to say this was what was going to happen if X thing happened. But the governor has taken a step in the right direction. I can understand people's sentiments saying, look, we've had these attacks in the past. No northern governor even condemned or called for arrest of perpetrators and all of that, and we let it slide. So let's hope this is the beginning. This is where we draw the line and say if there's jungle justice anywhere in Nigeria, if there's extrajudicial killings, this should be the gold standard going forward, and we hope they keep the energy.
I think, and I'd just also like to add that I think that two truths can coexist, and in this case, the two truths being that we completely condemn taking of another person's life, whether via mob killing or via,
Yes.
insurgent attacks and the like. So definitely we condemn the fact that these 16 people were killed, and that we hope that investigation is being carried out and that the perpetrators of this crime be brought to book. However, on the other hand, we cannot also ignore the fact that this has then stirred up deeper conversations. We've seen people of Edo State, the Uromi people, complaining about how they've had to deal with attacks, herdsmen crisis, how a number of their crops have had to be, beyond their crops even being attacked, their lives. I saw a video by the Onoji of Uzier Kingdom, and in that video he was talking about how their women were being raped and how, they were not, basically just asking for help and saying, we don't want these herdsmen on our farms anymore. We want them to go back to their states and not further cause any breakdown of law and order. So again, the two truths here being that...
Two truths, danger of a single story.
Exactly.
Yes.
So being that whilst we condemn this and say that those who perpetrated this action should be brought to justice, we cannot also ignore the cries of the citizens who say that they have been asking for the help of the government to deal with insecurity in Edo State, and a much broader conversation about the state of insecurity in Nigeria, and maybe needing to declare a state of emergency.
Now, that's where I'm going to pick it up from Olive. I think you just took the word right out of my mouth. We did see the president call for a state of emergency in a state where no life was lost, and the people said it was relatively peaceful. There was no form of fight, anger, and so on. But whether we like it or not, we can rightly say that that state of emergency was indeed initiated as a result of what was preempted that could have happened under the premise of a political wrangle between two political personalities, one which is the FCT minister and, of course, the current governor. However, was that enough for a State of the Nation to be called, or could it have been a case where the president would have invited these two parties, the elders and so on, who inadvertently were willing to also meet with the president? Now, that's one side. But you have a situation where people in the north, especially the middle belt, this morning as we speak, we do hear that Benue has been attacked. We do have headsmen. And if you have friends in Benue, they will tell you that this is a consistent thing. It reoccurs every now and then.
Underreported. Yeah.
Yes, underreported. Even musicians, you did have the likes of Timaya, who did come out just a few weeks ago and said, Benue, people are dying. Farmers are dying because the killing hasn't stopped. And one would wonder, why hasn't there been any state of emergency declared in these hotspots or hotbeds where you can say a state in Benue, a place in Benue, a particular area, is known to be a very hotspot for killings. Yeah, so you just say, okay, you know what, because of that, let's have a state of emergency. And I'm also using this opportunity to say, possibly, whenever they have the governors forum, when they have the governors forum, maybe it's something that all governors should sit down and take a careful look at and say, to attack this insecurity, we might need to take the strongest measure of possibly extending a proper state of emergency in order to curb it.
I absolutely agree with you. You've hit the nail on the head. It's a situation. The state of emergency is something we need to look at holistically the government needs to, because there are pockets, and this is what resorts to self-help and the situation we saw in Uromi, pockets of violence here and there, and then people become paranoid and resort to self-help.
All right, I mean, we'll talk more about the story. We'll talk about it during the course of our conversations this morning, as well as when we look at what Nigerians are saying. But let's now head to Abuja, where we have our Bureau Chief, Amadine Uyi, who bring us updates regarding the state, the reports we had just played this morning. Good morning, Amadine. We are seeing you're standing in front of a pile of refuse. What is the situation in the FCT?
First of all, just like you said, this is a refuse heap. Is taking part of the road. Is one out of several along this stretch of road that leads straight down several kilometers. Now, I'm standing at just the intersection between the Kano Federal Housing and a community densely populated known as Kano Village. But this refuse heap is a problem. It's just an example of what citizens at the satellite communities have begun to experience in Abuja. And it seems that government has been unable to tackle this situation. You can see the refuse heap. You can see cows feeding fat on the refuse. You can see scavengers also. This is how it is. Sometimes it even gets way past the middle of the road. And residents are surprised. Is it that the FCT administration is unable to do anything to manage this, what they now call a crisis? Olive?
The local council doing about this crisis? How did he snowball into a crisis? What's the official communication with regards to this heap of rubbish? Because it's very unsightly and it could lead to a public health emergency.
All right, we hope to reconnect with them.
When you hear the federal capital territory and you
Yeah.
see the person of the FCT minister, his personality, he's been given awards here and there. He was given a honorary doctorate just last week, and you see that report. It's very.
You know, we will never have.
There's a huge
would never have
contrast.
believed
Believe
that
that's the
FCT.
FCT.
Exactly. I would never, if I had
Yeah,
seen that
yeah.
random clip, I would never
I
have
mean,
believed it was the FCT.
down here where we're broadcasting from, which is Lagos. Lagos has suffered from waste mismanagement for the past, I'd say, possibly 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. 4 years first from the previous administration, which was under the former governor. Many had complained terribly that Lagos is dirty. And recently, not too long, just last week, we also had a report that Lagos is smelly, and we had a representation and someone from the state government who came to speak about the challenges and what they are currently doing.
And he said Lagos is not smelling.
Yes, he said so. But
He only said that 7-Up area is smelly.
But that's that's his own decision. But I don't agree with that. I think it's have you when you drive and you wind up, you really don't smell anything, do you? But when you wind down, what happens?
Sometimes, even when you wind up, the smell has a way of finding its way into your car.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope to reconnect with our man, Amadine Uyi. We did get a little feedback that there was a little connectivity issue, but if Amadine joins us, we'll definitely return back to that clear eye view of what we saw, especially, I don't want to call it an eyesore.
But it is an eyesore. But
it's an eyesore, and this is actually happening in Birmingham, in the UK as we speak. So.
All right. Anyway, let's move on now to our next story very quickly. Let's tell you that the political crisis in Rivers State continues to escalate as fresh allegations surface against the suspended governor, Siminalayi Fubara. In a recent development, former head of service George Ehie accused Governor Fubara of financial misappropriation and allegedly inciting violence against the state and its infrastructure. Ehie also implicated the chief of staff, Edison, Ehie, in his claims. However, both Fubara and Ehie have strongly denied the accusations, alleging that Ehie has been compromised. Well, Binga, you have more report on that as well.
Yes, responding to the allegations, Chief of Staff Edison Ehie made a revelation claiming that he was offered 5 billion naira to orchestrate Governor Fubara's impeachment. Ehie insists he has evidence on his phone. Meanwhile, stakeholders in River State, including leaders of the Ijo ethnic group, have condemned the situation, emphasizing that a peaceful resolution through open dialogue would have been preferable to discussions about a state of emergency.
Joining us this morning to discuss the ongoing situation in River State is the President, Ijo National Congress Global, Professor Benjamin Ogele Okaba. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. We also have with us the founder of TAF Foundation, Mr. J.K. Pele. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Nigerians. It's great to be here, far away in Germany.
All right, great to have you join us. Let's start with you, Mr. Pele, and start with the allegations. First of all, the resignation of the former head of service and the allegations that he made against Governor Fubara. Did you see these allegations coming from him, and what are your thoughts about them?
Well, everyone have a right to make claims and lay claims. Whether it is true or not will be based on evidence. It's unfortunate that the former head of service, who was part of Fubara's administration, who were critics of Yusuf has cross-carpeted. It's his right to do so, but also I think he should be mindful of the claims that he's making. As long as he has concrete evidence, then those claims will hold waters. But if he doesn't, it doesn't hold waters. It looks to me like something that is stage managed. There's been videos making rounds that some of his, in fact, the first press conference was done from a hotel that they claim belongs to Yusuf Wike. His body language, I'm a communication specialist. His body language and the way and manner he presents his statements and claims looks like something that is induced. He looks to me like a masquerade that is dancing and someone else is beating the drum somewhere. But I think these guys have to understand the fact that they are destroying the states, the very states that produced them, the very process that gave them opportunity, the very people that through whom they became what they are. And so whatever you do, when you put yourself first and put others last, you will end up destroying others. And I think we need to stop. Wike should call his people to order. Fubara should call his people to order. We have one river state, and that state is bigger than anybody and everybody. And I think we need to take that into consideration. That will be my opening statement.
Let me go straight to Professor Kaba. Professor Kaba, do you also in any way agree with what, of course, our guest has also said, that that video we did see looked like it was staged? And even if it was staged, what do you think could be the reason why someone who had, minute fences with Governor Fubara decides to all of a sudden change and, become an antagonist, as it were?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I think I am in sync with the statements made by my colleague here on those what we call it, videos that showed that actually portrayed the former head of service. You can see that is state managed. Look at his looking like somebody under duress. Compared to this same man in other gatherings, I know him very well. He's a very intelligent, very vibrant scholar very vibrant scholar. So when you do a comparison between the videos that were taken in that hotel and its outward shows on other places, even praising the Fubara administration. In one of them, he did mention that this was the very best that has happened to Rivers State. It's very, very obvious that he was induced. Now, beyond the inducement, let us look at the content of the statements he made. First of all, he alleged that he was present when the governor had meetings with Bala Mohammed and some politicians and all that. Now, you definitely, those of you who are very conversant with political engineering, if a governor, if you look at the hierarchy of political classing or categorization, is so far beyond the group of persons that should have such a meeting. He's not deputy governor, he's not speaker, he's not, he does not also belong to the cartel. As chief of staff, he was a permanent secretary, he was a civil servant that was elevated to that position. So no government will bring in a chief of staff to such sensitive discussions. So that is one. Then when you talk about monies being paid here, it's also not working in the account section. It's not the accountant general of the state. Nor that does have any information about finances in the place. You know. Then so so that is so. Then again, when you go back to the other claims about bumping, and that he made allegations that governor spearheaded the bumping and all that. Those are very sensitive issues that he can, even if the governor did, he cannot have any knowledge about them. Now, we have said earlier before that the body language and the statements of Wike in recent times were very clear. He said, I'm going to make Rivers State ungovernable unless Fubara dances to my tune, unless Fubara comes to his knee. And when he used those very strong words, it meant anything and everything, including inciting the assembly members to ensure that it's removed, including influencing whoever needed to take any position that was vital on making Fubara leave office abruptly. And that also includes the bumping, because a man said that if we just are saying they are the only people that can bump, I also, equally people can also bump. And the next 24 hours, bumping took place. Okay. And I ask this question again. If as the president said, the bumping was part of the efforts put in place by those who said, if you remove Fubara, we are going to bump. Now, if that was actually the case, why has the bumping not continued after it's removed? Fubara has been removed. Fubara has been suspended. People said, if you suspend Fubara, we are going to bump. Right? Now, after the suspension, the pumping has ceased. Why not look the other way? Those who said we're going to make the state uncomfortable so that we can attract the federal government's attention to the insecurity situation as a reason for declaring a state of emergency. So for me, it is obvious that it's a cooked up, well orchestrated, but not properly coordinated, because they are, even amongst themselves, they know that this is an error. Instead of getting the sympathy of whoever they want to get, it is making.
Professor Kabir,
yes.
If I may come in here, please, just quickly, before we move to Mr. J. Capella in Germany. The Ijaw Nation, the INC, which you're the president of, has made several statements in the past since the declaration of a state of emergency, and I believe you met a few days ago with elders of the Ijaw Nation. Is there any resolution or communique that has been given with regards to the declaration of the state of emergency and moving the state forward? Several things have happened since that declaration of state of emergency. The sole administrator just recently sacked political appointees. What's the official position of the INC on this?
Yeah, the official position of the INC, which is contained in a communique that was issued after that very strategic meeting, was issued, and the allies of that communique will include one, the condemnation of the declaration or proclamation of a state of emergency, because the Ijaw Nation felt that there was actually no reason, particularly the reasons adduced by the president were not cogent or tangible enough, because here you're talking about pipeline vandalization across the entire country. Entire country. There are more serious issues that actually warrant declaring of state of emergency. So for us, it was just targeted at the removal of the governor of Rivers State, which actually was the intention. It was only what Wike had prayed for. And only recently, 16 men were killed in Edo State, in Osun State, and so many other places. In fact, in Zamfara State, lawmakers have not been paid for quite some months. So we have pockets of similar worse situations. The question is, why selective about declaration of state of emergency? Then, number two, thereafter, we have a sole administrator appointed, which again is unconstitutional, following whatever. And again, if you look at the sole administrator, go to the background, we've seen pictures of the sole administrator and the Wike, meaning that there's a relationship of some kind of acquaintance. And it means, therefore, that Wike has had in appointing who should replace Fubara and all that. Now, the curious point to note is that the president will always say it's for peace. If it's for peace, you have two of your children fighting. You tie the hands, two hands of one of them to the back, and you allow the other to be punching the other. That is very, very unfair. If you know, in the peace process, there must be balancing. Now, when I talk about punches, Fubara and Wike have been fighting. We all know. Now, all the judgments, all the body language, all the statements have always been against Fubara. President has never said anything that Wike has done wrong. Even when Pandev went to him.
At this point, and I completely see where you're coming from, because majority of the arguments or conversations we've seen about this would be to the president applauding former Governor Nyesom Wike and saying, you know, the conversation about the removal from Treasury single account, and just basically applauding the work he's done or he's doing. And it doesn't seem like there might be any punitive measures now or in the nearest future. We really do not know. But I want to bring Mr. Epele into the conversation and talk about the implications of the allegations first by Judge Mweke. Do these have grave implications on the support that the people of Rivers State have given to Governor Siminalayi Fubara? Because right after the suspension of the governor, we did see that he amassed massive support from the people of Rivers State, even with our Vox Pop and the interactions we had with some of the elders. Does he still garner this same level of support from the elders, even with all that's going on?
Thank you for that question. First of all, I want to say that I'm very proud of my president. I served in that communique committee that produced that statement that he had just succinctly summarized. I am very proud of profs and their stand. Whether the Yusuf Wike, the guy who just cross-carpeted to become a pro-Wike after he has sucked the Fubara administration, he was the head of service. And I think the entire state should hold him accountable and double check every expenditure that he made, all the money that was given to him. He should be able to come out and account for them. Whatever claim he has made and whatever that he is saying has no bearing at all. Nobody, first, he doesn't have credibility. His statement lacks credibility. His personality lacks credibility. His body language is zero credibility. And so it doesn't have any impact on the people that is supporting Fubara. And for heaven's sake, this is not just about Fubara and the support he's getting. It's about the people. You know, no matter what they do, the Rivers people are resilient. Rivers people are peace-loving. Rivers people stands for what is right. The more they push this narrative, the more they stand on this false allegation, the more they take a stand on this unconstitutional measure that they are taking. I mean, look at the more they do all of that, the more support for Ghana's. However, it's also pertinent to mention here that this very sole administrator that I can boldly describe as illegal, unconstitutional, is destroying the very fabric of democracy. First, he has gone to appoint a northerner. I'm not a tribalist, but however, are there no good people of River State that would have served that purpose? Why add salt to injury? He's totally removed all the political appointees. These are people that were appointed based on a legal, someone who has the mandate of the people. Yes, you will argue that he's been suspended. Therefore, all his appointees may not necessarily. Go ahead.
You said he's destroying the fabrics of democracy. Some people have said he's dismantling the political structure of Siminalayi Fubara. Would you agree with them? Especially because that was the same conversation when Nyesom Wike and Siminalayi Fubara's drama started about Sim Fubara dismantling Nyesom Wike's political structure.
Well, I don't know. I'm more focused on the democracy in its holistically. When you begin to destroy the outcome of democratic process, you are invariably destroying democracy in itself. It's also very important here to mention that I'm taken aback by the fact that this president who stood for democracy, who laid down his life for democracy, who exited this country just to hold on to the tenets of democracy, is turning around to do the very opposite. That is what is surprising to me when it comes to the president and what he has done. The point is, let's not even cry over spilled milk. The milk has already been spilled. Can we remedy the situation? Can we bring sanity to the entire process? Yes, we can, if the president is willing. And there is no other better way to put it than the way my president, the Edo Nation President Global, has put it in context. Restore this man back to his mandated position. Restore democracy. Let us do everything possible to ensure that the Rivers people will not continue to suffer, that democratic dividends that have already been garnered will not be eroded. You know, when things like this happen, I can only describe it as a rape on democracy. And this nonsense must stop. This nonsense must stop because it is our people, the Rivers people, and every time they push my button, I move to tears. This nonsense must stop, you know? And it's a shame on all the people perpetuating this thing because they do have cousins, brothers, mothers, fathers. Yusuf Wike's father is still living in Port Harcourt. His mother is still living in Port Harcourt. But here's what people don't know. They are not in support of what he's doing. And so when your father is against you and your mother is against you, that leaves a lot to be desired. You know, when your cousins are against you, that leaves a lot to be desired. This is not casting aspersion on Yusuf Wike, but I'm saying that he has what it takes to put a stop to this nonsense. How long will you continue to show the people that you are the emperor? And by the way, who made you an emperor? The people are greater than this individual, and you cannot hold the entire state, you know, on their jugular. We need to breathe. And please, let's use this opportunity to tell the president that enough is enough. This is the state that makes it possible for you to fly around in the private jet. This is one of the states that makes it possible for Aso Rock to run. This is one of the states that makes it possible for the country to thrive. We must not face this level of injustice. It is not acceptable. And the whole world is watching. And one day, every history will judge us right or wrong. Let me end by saying that, Mr. President, if you're watching this or any of your people are watching this, don't let this be part of your legacy. Do not let this be part of, don't allow people to remember that this is part of your legacy. They say you're known for two things, the problem you solve or the problem you created. Please be known for the problem you solve. Thank you.
All right. Anyway,
yeah.
I think we've gotten your points, but just before we wrap up, I'd like to ask Professor just one last question here from us. Professor, are there any plans to meet with the sole administrator, especially looking at the elders, the stakeholders in Ijo? Have there been plans? Have you all decided to meet with him, to have a sit-down, a tete-a-tete, or a conversation?
Because it's an illegal entity as far as we are concerned. So meeting with him, we give legitimacy to his person and those rubbish he's perpetrating. Let me just go further to say that so many punches beyond removing and replacing persons appointed by the other person. So it's very, very illegal. So moving forward, just like you rightly said, we must have the president prioritize the interest of the people. Democracy is about the people, it's not about individual. The job people have said it earlier, that Mr. President should choose between the job people and Wike. Wike has insulted us publicly. Wike has said all kinds of things, boasting, and it is all obvious that he's doing all that because he has the tacit support of Mr. President. How can a president sit as president and allow one of your ministers to demean a nation? One of the four largest ethnic nationalities in this country, to a drunkard to make such statements, and Mr. President cannot just call it to order. So we feel that Wike is delivering a message from Mr. President. Because if he keeps quiet and he continues to keep quiet, just like we said earlier, there will be consequences. Already there's a dent on Mr. President's democratic credentials. The entire world now knows him as somebody who is not in charge, that he has handed over this country to one cantankerous human being who decides to do whatever I feel like doing, publicly and otherwise. So, but we are still on the path of peace. We are still on the path of peace. Mr. President should do the needful, which will include
Prof, I want
the
us to
immediate
speak about,
restoration
Prof,
of order,
if I may
and that
interject.
order can only come.
All right. I mean, you have said that we're still on the... Prof, can you hear us?
Bringing back Fubara and bringing about the democratically elected institutions in River State.
Prof,
There are definitely there are differences. They can talk to themselves. Mr. President can even call on them together and say, look, what are your demands? What are their issues? As a father, without even external intervention, he can call them and say, look, if you needed 5 items for the interest of peace, have 2. They can harmonize.
I think that's the essence. Prof,
yes.
But the president intervened earlier. And when the president intervened, the president was criticized for meddling in the affairs of River State. So what difference will it make if the president intervenes now?
Now, when you say meddling, right, it is meddling at the point of providing support to one individual against the other. There's nothing wrong. When Lagos State had crisis, he called the parties together and they resolved it peacefully. He did not allow somebody with a superior power to oppress and suppress and intimidate the other person. People called it meddling because they saw him using federal power, imposing federal power on one and allowing the same person to break down on an institution. That's what we're saying. And again, in all of this, it's very clear that Wike is doing this to satisfy Mr. President, is to give Mr. President that assurance that come 2027, I am in charge of not just River State, but everywhere.
But Prof,
everywhere in the South.
Prof, permit me to interject.
You know?
Prof, sorry, because we're running out of time. I mean, we appreciate your comments, but would also appreciate if you could just make it a bit shorter so we can get more out of this conversation in the last 5 minutes that we have now. I do have some questions, and my colleagues also have some questions to ask, but my question to you is, I know I did ask if you plan to have any meeting with the sole administrator. Your response seems to be a no, meaning that he is not recognized by the stakeholders and elders as one that they would go have a meeting with. Well, my next question is, what do you say about the Bayelsa State governor who has come out to warn the FCT minister not to trespass into Bayelsa as well? Are the Ijo, so to say, the council, are they also in support of that statement made by the governor of Bayelsa State?
Very well. I'm sure you've heard the Ijo Youth Council, which is the youth wing of the INC, made very clear statements because one, though at some point people see it as political, but we are talking about the security of lives and property. The young man who is trying to convene that meeting is known. I don't want to disparage anybody in the public. It's known as somebody who does not have any character. Then his intention is to incite crisis in Bayelsa State. Again, Wiki had said it earlier that any governor that is not in support of this thing is going to make that place ungovernable. So the Bayelsa State government had made that pronouncement after meeting with his service chiefs and evaluating the security implications of all of that. So we are in sync with the Bayelsa State government. In fact, we are going to support him to ensure that there will not be any crisis. In fact, as I talk to you, I'm praying very seriously to Almighty God to avert that visit in whatever form, because again, if I tell you for free that that visit is not necessary.
Thank you very much, Prof. I would like
to
to bring in Mr. Jacob Pele into the conversation. Mr. Pele, earlier you said, you know, you've accepted the situation. The state of emergency has been declared. No need to cry over spilled milk. Now, looking forward, in a few weeks' time, or maybe I think next week, it will be a month since the declaration of the state of emergency, if I'm not mistaken. Going forward, let's be pragmatic here. Do you think at the end of the 6 months, the way things are going with revelations coming every other week, the elders are yet to sit down with the Warren parties, would we have a peaceful situation where Governor Fubara will return to Government House in Port Harcourt, or do you think there might be an extension? What will be the ideal case scenario, and what steps need to be taken to get to that point?
Well, it's simple. I don't think it would stay as much as the period of time that is provided in the proclamation. If you go back to what the National Assembly said in their amended proclamation, which received the approval of the House, so to speak, you will notice that they empowered the president to go ahead and first constitute the body of elders, eminent Nigerians, as they put it, that will bring these two warring parties together and begin to have a discussion so that we will get a lasting peace, and then, of course, advise the president to lift the state of emergency. So I want to believe that there is nothing that cannot be resolved. I want to believe that it will be lifted before the 6 months period. I don't see any form of extension. And I will say that on the heels of the fact that they have, even the president have received a lot of negative feedback as a result of this decision. Well, I don't know if he wants to stand his ground and let the process play out for 6 months, but that's not too healthy for democracy. That's not too healthy for a leader who believes in democracy. It's not good for the state. The earlier that this is resolved, the better. The bringing together the eminent Nigerians that will look into this is a very laudable solution. And so if I go back to how this whole thing started and the president's getting involved, if he had played neutrality, if he had been neutral from day one, we wouldn't be where we are. You know, instead of taking the sided position that he took, that made Wike feels that he's the de facto president. If he had done otherwise, we won't be where we are today. But I want to also use this opportunity first to thank you, News Central, for being forthright, for always bringing this issue to the front burner, but also to thank the dear people of River State and to remind us who we are. We are peace-loving, law-abiding citizens. Let's continue to be that peace-loving and law-abiding citizen that we are. Do not allow anyone to press your button. Do not allow anyone to move you into the street. Remember that these people concerned, their own children are not there. It is you that will shed your own innocent blood, and we cannot afford that. You know, let's continue to be peaceful. Let's continue to let our voices be heard. We will win if we all fight in the moral sense, the fight for democracy. You know, I don't know, in case I don't get another chance to say another word, I want to address the president. And I say to you, Mr. President, that the day you were born, you cried. Everyone around you, the whole world rejoiced. Please leave a legacy that the day you die, you will rejoice, and everyone around you will cry.
And it's
Please be remembered.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We have to go now because we have to get to our next segment, but I believe that the president has heard those words that you wrapped the conversation with. Mr. Okpebholo, thank you very much. Professor Benjamin Ogele Okaba, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. And we certainly want the best for River State. We want things to return to normal for River State. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time and insights.
Thank you, Olive. Thank you for having us. My president, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
we're going on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll move to our next segment. Stay with us.
Go back to Breakfast Central. As is typical in Nigeria, the day after the Edo Fitri celebration is marked by festivities and merriment as families flock to recreation centers to unwind before the holidays come to an end. This year, the usual buzz was noticeably different. News Central's correspondent Joshua Imarayi visited the popular Millennium Park in Abuja to keep up with, to see how families are keeping up with the tradition.
As is tradition on the second day of Eid, Abuja's Millennium Park buzzes with celebration. Yet behind the joy, many families feel the weight of economic challenges. Join us as we speak with Muslim faithful about how the economy is reshaping their Eid experience.
Last year is far better than this year because last year I think things in the market are not that expensive as they are this time around. And as you can even see from the look of the things going on here, you can see the numbers of people that are out here are not compared to the last year. Last year, everywhere is filled up with people, with families, but now some people are not even having the transport, the means to be here.
Things were a lot easier last time in terms of, the economy compared to this time around. So yeah, I had more fun last time than this time.
Those who managed to visit the park cited inflation and lower purchasing power as the main reasons for the low-key celebration.
The amount one makes is more than last year, but notwithstanding the value is lower. One may make probably like, let's say if one makes like 250, 300,000 this year, like 50,000 more than last year. Even at that, the value of 250 compared to last year is far, far lower. So no matter how much you make this time around, in terms of value, it's still smaller than what one gets last year.
I remember very vividly that around this time last year, what we were buying for like 10 naira is now like 16, 17, 18 naira, even 20 naira. So there's inflation. The inflation rate for me is even more than what the authorities are even reporting. It's much more than that.
As the holiday comes to an end, the impact of inflation and financial strain on everyday Nigerian is evidently taking its toll on moments meant for relaxation. Despite these challenges, many remain hopeful that economic conditions will improve, allowing families to fully enjoy future celebrations. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Very interesting conversation there. No doubt the celebration has come and gone. Olive, Benga, one thing that comes to mind while looking at that video is the fact that, once it's weekend, you're already thinking, oh, Sunday, Monday's work.
Yes.
So your mindset, is already getting ready for work. But how does it feel like when today is the final day of the holiday and tomorrow you're getting back to work?
I think it's not as complicated when it's midweek because there's just that gloomy feeling that Monday comes with. But knowing that you're starting on Wednesday makes it less tiring. So I don't think it's going to be so bad, for them. But
I mean, I really can't relate.
Exactly,
it's just that when other mere mortals are having public holidays, I begin to question my career choice because it's more brazen. Like my neighbors saw me wearing a suit today and stepping out, carrying my bag. Like, where's this man going to? Did he miss the date or calendar? But it's what we're. I won't trade this job for anything else apart from football, though. I like their remuneration. See Ronaldo.
Anyway, away from that break now, let's go back to the very big story. One of the biggest stories trending now in Nigeria has got to do with the Edo State killings, and many Nigerians are applauding the fact that the Edo State governor did also team up with the Kano State governor to ensure that they douse the fire, the raging fire. Now, in case you do not know what the story is all about, we did mention earlier on, and of course there are reports about it right here from News Central. We followed thoroughly covering this story, and hopefully in the course of this morning's broadcast, we should have one of our men on ground who would be speaking with a member of one of the family members of the late, you could call them travelers. I think I'd rather use that word travelers because they are Nigerians. They're not from a particular tribe. They're just travelers. They are Nigerians who are moving from one place, from one state to the other. Now, that conversation has indeed sparked a lot of reactions on social media. People are saying, why were they traveling with guns? What were they doing there? And so on. But let's take a look at this video. There seems to be a latest update on that story, and it's got to do with the governor. Now, he is asking the Edo State governor to not just apprehend the perpetrators, but he's asking that they should be paraded before the public, the media, TV. Everyone should see who they are. Let's watch this. We'll let you react to the story. Let's take a look at this first.
So far arrested about 14 people in connection of the killings of these people. The Inspector General have directed the DIG, CID at the force headquarters, Abuja, to take over the investigation. Because of the holiday, these people, after the holiday, these people will be transferred to Abuja for further interrogation and more arrests will be made.
My prayer on behalf of the families, on behalf of the good people of the state, I know you have started taking action like we said. Many of them were apprehended. We will want to see them physically paraded so that Nigerians and the families could see them to know, yes, they were apprehended. That, Your Excellency, will go a long way in making the families and their own brothers happy.
So did you get that? That's the Kano State governor making a very strong request. We do have a legal luminary, amongst us here, plus Benga and, of course, Olive. What's your take on this?
Well, it's not my take. It's the Nigeria, the constitution.
Yeah, what's your take in terms of personal, and then maybe look at it from the law? Okay, so let me start with
the legal perspective. Here in Nigeria, we've always criticized parading of suspects, and I will call them suspects because until a court of competent jurisdiction has pronounced them guilty, they are still suspects. And even in a case where the charge is murder, everyone is entitled to representation. That's what Nigerian law provides for. According to Section 36, subsection 5 of the Constitution, you're guaranteed the right to fair hearing. So there should be a process for them to go through trial, especially in a country like Nigeria, where sometimes you're prone to picking the wrong people. There are a number of people who are in prison now who have been arrested for crimes they did not commit. So the best way to ensure that justice is being served is to ensure that there's an arrest, the arrest goes to court as quickly as possible, and that the case is tried as quickly as possible with evidence and facts, and that the police and all the law enforcement agents do their due diligence. Asking that these suspects be paraded, it's illegal. It's against Nigerian law. That's one. Two, we would then set a precedent that would be very hard to follow, because people would then start to say, all the people who have been killed, all the other people who have been killed by bandits, that have been reintegrated into the society, that have been de-radicalized, did we use that same measure? Did we say that, they must be paraded? In fact, they have been reintegrated, a number of them, and what good has that done for Nigeria? Let's just stick to what the law provides for.
Exactly.
The law says, they should be tried, they should be brought before a court of competent jurisdiction, and if the court finds them guilty, they should be made to dance to the tune of the court.
And just to add to what Olive said, when you run foul of the law, and it's exactly the same issue of jungle justice we're talking about, because presenting them before the public without proper investigation, when a court of competence jurisdiction has not sentenced you, has not pronounced you as guilty, it's mob justice. It's just it's a media parade, and it does nothing. It doesn't stop the issue. So we need to look
as guilty as the offense or the crime that you're criticizing.
Much more like a media trial now.
Yeah, so we really need a holistic solution to dealing with the issue of mob violence, and of course our criminal justice system, police response time. There's so many issues that we need to look at. But
and
like
the distrust of law enforcement, the distrust in law enforcement.
Yes, because most people resort to self-help because they feel the police will release them and they don't trust them, like you said. So, but like Libero said, the key issue here is to stay on the issue. We shouldn't make it sectional, and also make sure that this becomes the standard.
Right.
Interesting.
Anyway, we'll keep up to date with that story. Definitely, I'm sure there'll be more developments in Kano State regarding in Kano State as well as in Edo State regarding the killings that happened in Uromi, the killings of Nigerian citizens by Nigerian citizens. Very unfortunate. But we're going to break now, and when we come back, there's another interesting development. Did you know that in the nearest future, if you refuse to vote, you could potentially be arrested and locked up in jail? Stick around to find out why.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, do you know there is a bill that is supposed to lock you up in jail? Yes. Or you pay 100,000 naira should you fail to just vote. Aha. But don't be afraid. Let's break it down for you. Well, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, otherwise known as SERAP, has called on Senate President Godswill Akpabio and House Speaker Tajuddin Abbas to withdraw a proposed bill that seeks to impose a 6-month jail term or 100,000 naira fine on eligible Nigerians who fail to vote in elections.
The organization described the bill as oppressive and a violation of citizens' rights under the Nigerian Constitution and international human rights laws. The bill, titled Bill for an Act to Amend the Electoral Act 2022 to make it mandatory for all Nigerians of majority age to vote in all national and state elections and for related matters, proposes compulsory voting for all eligible Nigerians. Joining us now this morning on Breakfast Central is Deputy Director of SERAP, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare. Kola, a warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us in person this time around.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Now, your organization, SERAP, has described this bill as oppressive and unconstitutional. In what specific ways does it contradict both the Nigerian Constitution and international human rights standards? I mean, aren't you happy to have higher voter turnouts? Proponents of democracy says it strengthens democracy.
No, not necessarily. And that is why we need to look at these within the democratic context. That is why we have laws, primarily among which is the Constitution, that guides the conduct of everyone, including those that govern the citizens and those political office holders, whether they are appointed or elected. In this instance, what does the bill seek to achieve? Knowing fully well that under our laws, people have the right to participate in government and not to. It is a right. It is not an obligation. It is not a duty, as it were. And that is why Section 14 of the Constitution says that the right of people to participate in government is preserved. It does not make it mandatory. And don't forget, participation in government does not start and end with going to the polls every 4 years, or if you can, the off-cycle elections. It means being able to have conversations, including conversations like these, to call government to order, to hold government accountable. It would appear that what this bill wants to do is to compel people to vote, but deprive them of the other aspects of participation, which is what the National Assembly should be looking into, and not to compel people to vote. And this is against the backdrop of the realities that we've seen, that voter turnout has decreased over the years. Registration increased, but participation, the actual voting.
I mean, I guess that's what brought about this.
But this is not the right way to go about it, which is why I would believe that the National Assembly should look at the causes, which I'm sure they are aware of that voter apathy. It's not really, voter apathy is just a symptom. It is apathy of the people for not being able to participate in government. That is what has led to the voter apathy.
So now that you've said that this is an unconstitutional bill, are there ways in which this bill can be challenged? What is SERAP hoping to achieve with, asking them to withdraw it? What are the steps you're taking?
Ordinarily, this is just one step out of many that we believe SERAP has initiated. SERAP is just one of the civil society organizations in Nigeria. So the people ultimately have the power. What we expect the people to do is to speak to the various members of the House of Representatives to call them. What is their position on this? Because that is why they are there. They are answering to their constituents. We have just ignited the spark, so to speak. The people are expected to take this up to ensure that that bill does not see the light of day.
And if it does go through, what will happen?
Of course, we said declared in our letter to the National Assembly, we will be compelled once again to go to court. This will become another public interest litigation, which it need not be. We would go to court if this bill becomes law, because the law allows people, any individual, to go to court to challenge the validity of a law in consonance with our constitution, which is the ground law. And we will do that if this bill scales through, which I do not believe in.
There are also many other bills that were passed. I'm sure you're aware. Has SERAP taken time to go through these bills, because they seem to be so much? And aside from this one, which doesn't in any way give Nigerians freedom to choose whether they want to exercise their rights in terms of voting or they don't want to at all. Would you say that the House and the Senate, would you say that they are taking it too far with these bills?
I think it's a case. When you look at some of the bills, not all, perhaps just some percentage of the bills being passed in both houses. Like in this instance, it appears to be a case of misplaced legislative priorities. There are other burning issues of governance that affect Nigerians, and even those in the National Assembly, much more importantly, than trying to compel people to vote. And that is why the National Assembly must understand its roles within the concept of checks and balances. Some people will say the National Assembly is a rubber stamp. That doesn't mean the National Assembly has to fight the judiciary or the executive, but it means the National Assembly will pass laws and perform the oversight functions to ensure that the people benefit. In this instance, when you look at the whole thread of bills that have come out in the past few years, how do they benefit the people? And zeroing in on these particular one, this amendment to the Electoral Act, which I believe there's another bill pending before the Senate, and I do hope it doesn't follow the same way. How does it benefit the people? It doesn't. In fact, it seeks to punish the people for what the government has been doing for them over the years.
Now, we have a tradition in this part of looking at global best practices and saying, you know, in saner climes that they've done this and it's worked well. Now, let's talk about saner climes. Australia, you agree with me, is a saner climb. Belgium is a saner climb. They've successfully implemented compulsory voting. Why does SERAP believe this won't work in Nigeria?
And I do agree.
I mean, people, it would wake up young Nigerians
not
that are spending time on TikTok. They know you could pay a fine or go to jail.
They also spending time on TikTok is a freedom of expression. You're free to do that. Not necessarily. I think we have 22 countries practicing mandatory voting presently. And I think about 10 or 12% of that, they are not enforced. Only a significant few enforce it, actually. But you need to look at our context. It is not just enough to say in saner climes, or in other that some people call it advanced democracies. We need to look at our local context.
What is our context?
How can we enforce these laws? The so-called many laws that we have they been enforced? We have the Freedom of Information Act. How well has it been enforced? How will it be enforced not to infringe on the rights of the people who may be perceived as not wanting to vote for a particular bloc or not? And that is what we need to look at. Again, we have to look at, does it have the capacity to handle the volume of people that will turn out to vote? Looking at the capacity of INEC and what INEC has done over the years. But I think, much more importantly, these countries, they started this mandatory voting because there was a context and a situation before they started. When we look at ours, will compulsory voting solve the problem of voter apathy? The question is a resounding no. So why should we do it?
All right. Speaking about the problem of voter apathy, which is what you said this bill seeks to solve. Well,
according to the bill.
According to the bill. Is there the bill can maybe be amended? You know how oftentimes we talk about certain bills not being completely thrown out?
Don't throw away the baby and the bathwater.
Is there a way that this bill could be amended to achieve the intended goal?
In this instance, save the baby. Don't kill the baby, but please throw the bathwater out entirely. There is nothing about this particular bill. And, you know, there are two bills we're talking about now. There is one before the House of Reps earlier this year, and then there is one last week before the Senate. We are not sure that the one before the Senate has these provisions, but we are concerned that it might, if not now, perhaps at all the other stages in the legislative process, which is why we need to talk now. It is not wrong to amend the Electoral Act. We do that from time to time, but it must be done looking backwards and looking forwards. What are the issues that arose from the last elections? How can we cure it? Is voter apathy the major issue that we have with the elections last year? What are the causes? And how can this law correct that? I do not think this particular amendment, I'm talking of the one amending 4 sections of the Electoral Act mandate and punishing people for not voting, is the right way to go. And that is if we look at the causes. Why don't people turn out to vote? It is because over time, people have seen that their views those in positions hold their views not to count. And that is why they do not turn out. And what about electoral violence? Just to give you a very good example. Last year, SERAP went to court in 2023, and last year, the Federal Court of Lagos, Honorable Justice Egwatu, gave judgment in favor of SERAP, compelling INEC to hold those who have been involved in electoral malpractice in 2023 general elections, including governors and their deputies, to account. The judgment is yet to be obeyed. Our lawyers had to file Form 47 and 48 as part of the contempt proceedings to compel the INEC chairman to obey the judgment. until they brought subsequent processes to appeal that judgment. But that judgment is yet to be obeyed. And so what does that say about INEC? If you don't punish people who have done wrongly in the last elections, people have died and nobody gets punished. Why do you want people to come out again and to vote? So to me, it's misplaced priorities. There are other things the National Assembly can do in amending the Electoral Act to make people participate more. What about the issue of electronic transmission of votes? That the court has given judgment that it's not mandatory as it were. What about enforcing that section to ensure that it is mandatory? And then we see whether people would react well to it by turning out to vote.
Absolutely, because if you look at the cost Nigeria spends, especially on election, it's way higher than that of South Africa. But yet, South Africa has the public display screen where each member, be it of parliament, the public can actually monitor how the numbers are being calculated on the screen. But INEC, we know we use paper, and then there's a lot of cancellation and so on. But you did mention something in your the statement you made now. What do you think about the immunity that is being pushed, especially by the House of Representatives, that governors, of course, those in political offices would not have immunity anymore once they are out of office?
I think it's mainly for vice president.
Yes, vice president as well, but president has been exempted. What do you make of that? Because if that was implemented, I'm sure you will not need to file this case again to ask them to implement what was initially agreed in the Lagos courts here.
No, the way we are going about it in the suit that we filed was to look at a certain provision of the ICPC Act that allows the ICPC to bring up what is called a special counsel to investigate these issues. And that is also without prejudice to the provisions of the Electoral Act that gives INEC, the legal practitioners working with INEC, to prosecute electoral offenses. So it is not a matter that INEC does not have the capacity to do so. It is more of an unwillingness to do so. So when you link these to the immunity, as INEC come out to tell us that the investigations that INEC has done with law enforcement agencies has indicted governors and their deputies, and they are not able to arrest and prosecute them, we've not seen any action from INEC. So we cannot even say immunity is a problem. But let us agree based on anecdotal evidence that immunity is a problem. It's a good way to go. Particularly, and that's one of the recommendations to the National Assembly, when it pertains to electoral offenses, there should be no immunity for everybody, including the president. That's one of the things we suggested in our latest correspondence.
But it's not distracting to them. How would they go about governance?
Electoral offenses will be the worst form of democratic evil you can think of. It means that the mandate that got people in the office, it's not legitimate. And I would think that anyone, including the president, would want to clear the air about legitimacy first and foremost. Legitimacy is a core part of democracy.
Now let's talk about low voter turnout. It's often linked to a lack of public trust in the electoral process and the system. We looked at Senate crimes. Now let's look at the way we do things in Nigeria. I remember one time in Abuja when the Naira was going up against the dollar, the CBN thought in its wisdom that the best thing to do was to cut the trees where the Bureau de Change operators stand and exchange money. So in order to encourage voting, I mean, would we suggest, they say drastic calls go for drastic measures, that they ban street football on election day and Premier League? Or what other suggestions does SERAP have to encourage voluntary participation in the electoral process?
Thank you, Mega. In fact, we have 4 suggestions in the letter that we sent to the National Assembly, which are clear. They are no issues of morality. They are simple issues of law. You have said drastic measures. The drastic measures we would expect is on the part of those in public office, whether they are appointed or elected. In this instance, those in the National Assembly, to show example, show that they are willing.
What are those 4 suggestions you
tell them to drop the bill, to ensure that the Constitution is amended to remove immunity for every public office holder if it's an electoral offense, to ensure that past electoral offenses are investigated and properly dealt with, and to ensure that the Electoral Act is amended to give effect for encourage people to vote.
In what way?
To ensure that, for instance, the issue of electoral offenses, the punishments are clear and the law is clear, but INEC has not been up to the task to ensure that they are able to prosecute those who commit electoral offenses. And the National Assembly has the power as part of its legislative and oversight to do this. And this is much more important than compelling people to vote or sending people to jail because they've not voted. That's not. And I do not also agree that we need to ban street football or stop people from going online or do other activities.
Or watching Premier League on election. No. Especially Chelsea fans.
All right, let's wow, Chelsea fans have collected inside this innocent conversation. Let's talk about what precedents or what your concerns are as to maybe the dangerous precedents that the passing of this bill will set in terms of, and I would maybe randomly think about how it can be manipulated politically by people, to just throw people in jail. So what would you say from your standpoint are some of the dangerous precedents that the passing of this bill might set?
We have a lot of evidence for that in Nigeria. And with globalization, Nigeria is always quick to want to keep up with the international community. We ratify a lot of conventions, and we have laws that tend to keep up with international best practices. The problem has always been the implementation. A very good example would be the Cybercrimes Act. When the act came out, it sounded lofty, it sounded good. It's even the wording sounded good. But look at the way it has been used since its enactment. It has been used by those in public offices and those who have influence to target those who deemed to be critical of government. And that is why it is very important that in making laws, and all Nigerians need to understand it to be able to advocate properly towards those in the National Assembly, it is not enough to make laws. There must be safeguards that ensure that in those laws themselves, and subsequently in its enforcement, to ensure that the rights of the people are not breached. I do not think that features in the mind of those in the National Assembly when laws have been passed. It is just to pass a law because it's done like that in other climes, and because perhaps there's some kind of political pressure internationally to pass those laws. And that's why those laws must have safeguards that protect the people from inherent abuse, which we've seen with various laws. A very good example would be the Cybercrimes Act, which we've gone to court to challenge, by the way, and government is yet to enforce the judgment we got from the ECOWAS court.
You seem to have gotten a lot of judgments that haven't yet gotten enforcement. Can you run us through some of them?
There are lots of them. Unfortunately, most of them are yet to be enforced directly. When I say directly, it means government and the agencies involved are yet to respond. For instance, in 2023, we got judgment. It's funny that the bulk of these judgments arise from freedom of information request, which is just simply SERAP, as a citizen of Nigeria, asking for information. We had written a freedom of information request to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and then the police to ask for, Minister of Finance, and Minister of Internal Affairs, how the loan we got from China then in millions of dollars was spent. And the loan was gotten to install security infrastructure in Abuja, CCTV and the likes. We didn't get a response and we went to court. 2 years of trial. And the court agreed with SERAP and mandated the Ministry of Finance to provide information as to how those loans have been spent. All the today, that is yet to be obeyed.
So whose fault is that? Is it the court?
Exactly.
Whose fault is it?
It's not the court.
So where does the fault lie?
Someone has to take responsibility.
We're having conversations.
So who has to take the responsibility? Because court has given judgment.
It is because the executive have practiced the art of impunity for so long that nothing gets done. And that is why it's very important to address impunity the moment it is either perceived or seen. I can go on and on about the several judgments we've gotten. What about the one we got last year? The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Again, another freedom of information request. Simply mandating that ministry to disclose the details of the amount the ministry claimed it has spent on humanitarian affairs in the country. Again, 2 years of trial, the court gave judgment, it is yet to be obeyed. And these are simply
Doesn't
requests
that
for information.
discourage you and your organization from the advocacy and the work you do?
That's a very good question.
Because it's almost like, I mean, it's
efforts in
futility.
Do I look discouraged? No. But perhaps if you can rationally consider whether I'm going to be discouraged. Now, consider the Nigerian people who have seen most of these things over the years, and you can now understand what has led to the voter apathy. But because I'm doing my job and I understand it, of course, I'm not. If this bill scales through, next week, of course, it can't. You can be sure next week we are going to court.
All right.
We will not be deterred.
Very interesting conversation. I'm sure we would have to buy out time to have you back because there's also the case of you also talking to the president concerning the River State issue. But that's a different, kettle of fish. We'd like to talk about that. Thank you so much, Kola, for joining us. Thank you very much.
Very much.
But anyway, we don't stop here now. Let's go straight to that very unwholesome story that's gotten a lot of Nigerians talking. It's got to do with the death of some travelers in Nigeria. We do have our man on ground, Emmanuel Bagudu, who joins us live this very morning. I do understand that Emmanuel was at a tail end or another part of Nigeria, but he had to crisscross very early in the late hours of yesterday/this morning. So I'd like to find out where he is. Emmanuel, if you can hear me, good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central once again.
Yes, a very good morning to you from Kano. Right now, I'm in Toronto, Bunkari local government area of Kano State, the home of one of the deceased, the home of the families of one of the deceased hunters who was killed at Uromi during the lynch. And I am standing here with one of his uncles. His name is Abubakar Al Hassan, and his nephew, Yao Umar, his 18-year nephew, whose name is Yao Umar, is among the victims. So he's going to tell us, and I'm actually with the families here of the entire Biri family here, who are already, who are all receiving condolences, and then hope, to, give an account of their deceased children who were killed in that unfortunate incident. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. You might want to ask him a few questions. I think some of the questions we have highlighted here is what does he think really happened? There's also an insinuation that it was the travelers that initiated the first attack before they were indeed lynched. Can you help us clarify that? Those two questions, and then we can add others as we go on. But please go on.
Okay, tambayar da suke shi ne Allah da akwai daya daga cikin wanda suka samu wannan hatsarin wanda nan da rai kuma na san da cewa ya bada labari me ya faru ko kuma labari da ya nuna cewa wai ai su yan maharban ne suka fara neman tsokana wai aka ga muku labarin wai da gaske ne haka take
labarin ba haka yake ba magana ta gaskiya abin da ya faru su akan hanya ma suke tafiya wannan yake kan hanya ina shi ina wata tsokana kuma wannan kowa ya gansu da shaida su da ID card ɗinsu da kayan mafarautan su sun to gida za su sallah
kuma suna da ID card ɗinsu
da ID card
wato kwantasa sun sai jan kenan
yes okay akwai ID card ɗinsu da komai da kayan su dai na farauta suna saman mota sun to gida za su sallah.
Okay, he is saying that of course that story is false, that they belong, their association is registered, the Hunters Federation is registered, and these young men were actually coming, including his nephew, were actually coming back with their ID cards on them. And all of them had their ID cards when they were lynched. So the story of the fact that they are causing trouble, they are the ones that actually, brought, started that trouble is false and should be discountenanced. Yeah.
Okay, if you can please help us ask him how he feels about the Edo State Governor Okpebholo, visiting and showing his condolence, and what exactly would compensate or would feel like compensation for him and his family right now.
Okay, dan kai dai an tambaya cewa jiya gwamnan Edo ya zo ya gan ku ya zo ya ta'aziya.
Wannan gaskiya.
Wai ya kake ji, wai zuwan shi ya kwanta maka da hankali ko kuma kana neman wani irin diya ya kamata a biya?
Wallahi duk raɗaɗin rashin wannan yara da muka yi. Zuwan su ni ya yi min kyau, ya yi min daɗi. Ya kwanta mana da hankali.
Ya kwanta muku da hankali. Sannan akwai wani
saboda mun tabbatar ya kima abin ya dame shi.
So amma
an karfin sa ya fi kuma yanzu ya ɗauki hanyoyin da mu an mana bayani, gwamnan Kano ya mana bayani, ya ɗau hanyoyin matakan gyara a kai.
So kamar da tambaya da aka yi, babban tambaya shi ne an dau hanyoyi, akwai wani irin diya da kuke so a biya kan yaran nan naku ko menene za a yi da zai faranta muku rai gaba ɗaya?
Mu duk abin da aka yi mana ba zai faranta mana rai ba, amma wannan hanyoyi da aka ɗauka na neman gyara saboda duk abin magana diya wannan ai a zaune take dama za a bayar, za a biya.
Okay.
Amma wannan duk ba ita ce a gaban mu ba. Duk abin da aka baka bai kaman rai ba.
Bai zai kawo rai ba.
Yawwa.
So what he's saying is that there is no any form of compensation that can bring back his nephew back to life. All he's happy about is that the processes and the measures taken by the Kano State government and of course the Edo State government, that those measures are okay for him. And the future occurrence should be averted, and of course he doesn't see anything. He already have it in mind that certainly the state government will collaborate and actually compensate them, but that will not bring back their children back to life. But what they want to do is to make sure what will really calm them down is that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. And then of course everybody is measures are taken to avoid any kind of occurrence. Yeah, that's what he's trying to say. Yeah.
sharing that with us. And also, please do say to him that we extend our condolences to him and to his family. And, you know, we really, really, I mean, really, like you said, nothing can bring them back. Nothing might feel like justice, but that this doesn't happen again. So please extend our condolences.
So, gidan talabijin din Edison ta ce tana nuna ta ya kuri kuma kamar da ka faɗa ba abin da zai dawo ba kuɗin da zai dawo da su ba kudiya. So amma ku ya kuri sannan ku ci gaba da biyayya da ba ma gwamnati yin haɗin kai domin a samu zaman lafiya a Kano gaba da Najeriya.
Kowa ya san jihar Kano ai mai biyayya ce. Inda ba biyayya da tuni ta ɗau abin da za ta ɗauka.
His response is very positive. He said everybody knows Kano is a peaceful place. If not that they are peaceful, they would have done a lot of retaliation, and he's happy that we came, and then they are going to do their best to give the necessary cooperation and make sure that the issue is settled in peace. Yeah.
I know we've wrapped up, but before you go, can you help us ask how old was his nephew? We'd like to know his age, and does he have any information concerning who the age grade of the other persons who were with his nephew? And can you also confirm, just to confirm, that they did have weapons with them, and those weapons are what they usually take to whenever they go around different states in Nigeria?
Okay, a dan samu dan tabbaci ne. Shekaran me sunan yaron dan wankan nan sannan kuma shekaran shi nawa?
Yaron sunansa
Ya'u waye?
Umar.
Shekaran sa nawa?
Shekara 18.
His name is Ya'u Umar. He's 18 years old. Sannan kuma an yi babban tambaya cewa kana da kasan sauran mutanen da Ya'u ya tafiya da su, ya sunan su?
Na sani. Akwai babban su shine Ibrahim.
Okay, shekaran shi nawa?
Shi zai kai shekara 50.
Okay. Kuma
shi bai mutu ba, an sassara shi dai ina can asibiti.
Haka muka ji labari.
Yawwa. Akwai kuma Husaini.
Okay, ta wurin. So he knows them. The eldest person among them, who is the leader of the hunters, is 50 years old and is still in a critical condition. Of course, he's 50 years old and his name is Ibrahim. Akwai Husaini kuma kace.
Akwai Husaini. Akwai Abdul Qadir.
There is Husaini, there's Abdul Qadir. So babban tambayan shine wai an ce suna rike da makamai manyan makamai. Da gaske ne yayin makaman suke?
Ba gaskiya bane. Wannan ba gaskiya bane. Kowa san dai ma bindiga ce, kowa ya san dai bindiga ta maharba. Ba wani makami ne mai abin nan ba. Da karnukansu da komai.
Okay, yes, he agreed that there were guns, but these guns are trained guns for hunting. They are not, professional guns that are used for criminality. And then there were dogs. They had these dogs that, these sniffer dogs that they use that helps them, to chase, chase animals, while they're hunting. So by seeing them, you know that they are not kidnappers, and he believes that the weapons they held are not, are not good enough to carry out those kidnappings that they have been accused of, and that they are just holding their guns, and there is nothing, dangerous about what they did. Sannan kuma tambaya shi ne fi ɗanka ya ne rayuwar shi kafin ya rasu.
Kan ya rasu? Ba noma yake, ina noma ina makaranta kuma. In lokacin wannan farautan yayi suke tafiya da.
Shi sunan shi kuma.
Shi yaran na
Ya'u Umar ko?
Ya'u Umar.
So he is saying that of course shine karami a cikin su duka.
Shine karami a cikin.
So his nephew is the youngest among the hunters, who is 18 years old. That is Ya'u Umar, and that his nephew is only going to school and then going to farm because school is on holiday. That's why he took advantage. During the fasting, schools closed down here in Kano, so he took advantage of the holiday to join the hunting, team down south, to get animals so that they can sell and then make ready for Salah. And that during rainy season, he comes back to farm, and then during dry season, he takes advantage of this kind of situation. That he's not a criminal, he's a young man that is very, very ambitious and wants to make his family happy. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Emmanuel Bagudu, thank you so much for joining us. And please, like we mentioned again, please send our thoughts and our prayers to him and to his family, as well as the rest of the deceased as you continue to interact with them. We'll come back to you in subsequent shows to connect with you regarding the updates you have on the killings that happened in Uromi. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. Let's take a look at the top stories. So far, so good, in case you missed out on some of them. Let's tell you quickly that the lawmaker representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, has announced that she would not back out on a plan to return to her constituency for the Salah break. The senator also urged her supporters to disregard speculations making the rounds that she has cancelled the scheduled visit. She disclosed this in a statement issued by her media team in the early hours of Tuesday, while stating that she has a statutory function in her capacity as a lawmaker representing her constituents. The senator encouraged her supporters to troop out en masse to celebrate Eid al-Fitr with her. Akpoti-Uduaghan's homecoming notification comes a few hours after the Kogi State government banned rallies and public gatherings in the state over security reports. Well, let's still stay in the Middle Belt region. The chairman of the Plateau State All Progressives Congress APC Elders Forum, Ambassador Danladi Uyep, has stated that Middle Belt is not involved in the ongoing political coalition against President Bola Tinubu's bid for a second term in 2027. According to Uyep, the coalition, reportedly led by some politicians, including former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, is driven by personal ambition rather than national interest. Well, let's also tell you that Kano State, where Governor Abah Kabir Yusuf has assured that his Edo State counterpart will pay compensation, also known as Dia, to families of the victims of Kano hunters that were killed in Uromi, Edo State. Governor Yusuf disclosed this on Monday during the condolence visit he paid to Torankawa community, home of some of the deceased hunters, alongside Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo. The visit, which brought together key government officials and community leaders, was aimed at reassuring the affected families of the government's commitment to securing justice and providing necessary support. Governor Yusuf emphasized the importance of ensuring that similar incidents do not occur in the future and called on the Edo State government to expedite the promised compensation for the victims' families, emphasizing that the loss of breadwinners had left many households in distress. Let's tell you that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, condemned the killing of 16 hunters in Edo State, vowing that the perpetrators will be brought to justice. The CDS said that Governor Monday Okpebholo had reached out to the victims' families, the Hausa community leaders in the state, and the northern governors about the incident. Well, let's also tell you here on News Central very quickly that the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has condemned the state of emergency declared by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and accused the sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibom Ibas, of dismantling governance structures put in place by Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The party also described the immediate past head of service of the state, Dr. George Weke, as a serial betrayer, alleging that Weke has become a tool for Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Yusuf, to spread false information against Fubara and his team. Well, talking about River State and the sole administrator, we want to find out what people of Rivers are indeed saying and what the situation really looks like, counting down the days since the sole administrator did indeed resume office. We do have Biola Festus, who happens to be our reporter on ground. Good morning to you, Biola, and it's good to see you this morning. First off, can you tell us where you are and give us a clear, indication of what's really happening right there? Okay, I think we do have a little communication, audio technical issues there. Well, Biola, hopefully we can connect with you again to find out what the situation is. That's our correspondent, Biola Festus, who's currently in, of course, River State, and she's to give us an update on what the situation really is. How are people reacting to the sole administrator who's in charge of a state that a few weeks ago, had a governor? Biola, can you hear us? Can you give it one more try? Yes, go ahead. Well, Well, fortunately, we're not able to hear Biola there. Well, let's see if we'll be able to come around once more and talk to her. But guess what? We'll go for a quick break. Our newspaper guest is around town and he's here with us. And then you can also be part of the newspaper front pages. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll find out what the papers are indeed saying.
Welcome back. It's time for us to review the newspaper front pages to see what they're saying. And of course, we're doing this with you. The numbers to call are on your TV screen if you'd like to react to any of the stories. But we have joining us to analyze, to give his expert, seasoned opinion, Ikechukwu Amechi, the publisher of the Nation newspaper. Good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amechi. Good to have you.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Benga. Good morning, Joe. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And happy holidays. I'm sure the roads were, really free when you were coming.
Very, very free. Except
I wish that would be the norm.
No, but Olive, we have too many holidays in this country. We can't afford to. Look, this is a country that is not producing. This is a country, and every day people are going on holidays. In the next 1 or 2 weeks now, we'll go for another 2 days.
Easter holiday.
It doesn't make sense to me. How many bank holidays do we have in the UK? How many public holidays do we have in Canada? How many do we have in the US? We are simply wasting our time.
That's the only thing that's giving Nigerian workers.
People would argue that, we need to slow down sometimes.
Yes.
That life is too...
Especially because in a country like Nigeria where people are just trying to make ends meet, some days you just want to be able to sit down in your house and take a deep breath.
Benga, continue slowing down while other countries are producing.
Wow.
At the end of the day, you will hope that Nigeria will be a productive economy.
After a careful
consideration,
I support you. It's not only journalists that have been working on home.
I see. I see. And I was about to ask, are you sure it's not because of the journalistic view that Mr. Amechi said, you know what, I think...
Okay.
Anyway.
Let's start with the Punch newspapers. On the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, Eid al-Fitr, we have low-key celebrations as Nigerians lament hardship. Traders lament low patronage. Citizens cut costs. PDP blames APC for economic woes. Later, Adebanjo made obese 2023 Lagos victory possible, Abuja says. 32-year-old Nigerian declared missing by Canadian police. Communal clashes. Adeleke threatens to depose 3 monarchs. Natasha's recall, INEC may conduct referendum in 90 days. Lagos Kano lead as 117 million Nigerians get NIN. They did not have NIN before. Okay. Lynched travelers. Governor demands public parade. 14 suspects moved to Abuja. Naira for crude. Federal government Dangote set for talks as refinery imports 12.6 million barrels. That's all on the Punch. Let's go to the Nigerian Tribune.
And the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, Uromi killings. Okpebholo visits Kano and governor promises justice for victims. The rider says arrested 14 suspects to be moved to Abuja, says Kano governor. Demand suspects publicly paraded fair compensation to families. Deputy Senate President demands justice. We also have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, reps more removal of transitional lawmaking power from president and governors. Tinubu extends Nandap's tenure as Immigration Comptroller General by 1 year. We're seeing a pattern here. The head of corrections, the head of immigration, customs was also extended. The IG was extended, and now immigration CG. NSIA cumulative retained earnings hit 3.74 trillion naira. Makinde Ladoja tore Ibadan Circular Road. Ifon Ilobu area Osun crisis. Adeleke threatens to dethrone monarchs of warring communities. He says if they can't bring about peace, they will be dethroned. And how Rivers crisis shape 2027 politics.
All right, we'll come back to review the newspapers, but let's quickly go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be able to take your calls as well.
I still the newspaper front pages here. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We have Mr. Amechi here to help us with the analysis. And still on the front page of the Tribune, one last story before I hand over to Joe, who will be reviewing the Daily Independent newspaper. Kogi bars convoy, public gatherings and rallies as Natasha visits. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan visits a constituency today to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. The reason is that they have security reports that some elements trying to cause trouble in Kogi State.
While you were talking, I was trying to study Amichi's face.
Please, let's start with that story. Please go ahead.
Yes,
What's your
take? Well, it is this part of this endless drama that is even, if you ask me, is absurd. But the truth of the matter is that Natasha is a senator. Even if you say she has been suspended now for 6 months, she represents a constituency. This is a religious festivity, and she wants to go to her constituency to celebrate Eid with her constituents. And now the state government is saying they have a security report. Security report, that what is going to happen? If you have a security report that some elements are going to cause a problem there, why don't you pick those elements? That means that you already know who the elements are. Why don't you pick those elements rather than circumventing the rights of a citizen to free association, freedom of movement? Look, the way we play politics in this country, and by the way, this is the same constituents that some people want us to believe have signed a petition to record this same Natasha. And it is this same constituents that you are afraid that they are going to give Natasha a resounding welcome. And
there's a lot of contradiction there.
To stop that, in order not to show that Natasha has popularity, that Natasha is in fact accepted by her people, you want to shut down any homecoming. She shouldn't come in a convoy, and there should be no rally. Look, we fool ourselves a lot in this country, and the charade that is going on in the name of the governance, it beggars belief.
Now let's look at it from the...
Please, I want us to talk about Bayelsa because I want to do a comparison. Yes. Is this different from the governor of Bayelsa State, Oyedere, saying that the April 12th mega rally in support of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Nyesom Wike should not hold in Bayelsa State because he feels like it might lead to an inciting situation, might trigger violence? And the people who say that, you know, that should also be, I mean, they're almost the same thing. So do you think that is the same situation here and the same rules should apply?
Well, generally speaking, I think this idea of curtailing freedom of association, which is a fundamental right of Nigerians guaranteed in the 1999 Constitution, we should not go ahead with it. It does no justice now to what we preach as a democracy, to what we say we stand for as people living in civilized society. But then, look, can we place the Bayelsa thing side by side with the Natasha's homecoming? I think they are miles apart. Natasha is simply going home. She's from that constituency. She's the senator representing that constituency, and she wants to go home. So why stop her? Why stop the rally? This is quite different from an Nyesom Wike, who is from Rivers State, an Ikwere man, going to Bayelsa,
rather.
No, for whatever. Why are they receiving him in Bayelsa? Is he contesting election, or is he doing a popularity contest? If he's doing a popularity contest, for crying out loud, he should go to Ikwere and do that. Why is he going to Ejo land? What are they receiving him for? So those two scenarios are quite apart. But look, the politics we are playing in this country, I insist, will not do us any good. At the end of the day, we are simply causing trouble where there should be none. This idea of rule of strong men rather than rule of law, this idea that might is power or might is right, this idea that you can get away with any level of impunity in this country as long as you have the power to do so, they are all very bad signals, and I don't see how we can take our country.
Kogi State government would argue with you that you're not privy to the security reports, and that maybe they don't have the capacity to deal with this element. And number two, that it's not just the Natasha homecoming ban, it's a carpet ban on any rallies from any organization. Is a statewide ban. Does that still hold water?
But we know that's been
political
and being economical with the truth. You don't. It's like someone hiding behind a finger. That's what the Kogi State government is doing. And again, if a state government that has a security report already does not have the capacity to identify. So what is in that security report? That some people want to foment trouble. Those people that want to foment trouble, were they identified? If they were identified, what is difficult in, okay, Benga wants to hide under the cover of Natasha coming home to cause trouble and going to pick Benga. It's as simple as that. What they are demonstrating is also what I call the failure of the Nigerian state. It is.
I mean, the Nigerian states had security reports that there might be violence in River State. They didn't use its capacity, the entire security architecture, but decided to declare a state of emergency. So we see this playing out in Kogi State too.
Again, the state of emergency in River State. Benga, but we've said this over and over and over again. The president has the right to declare a state of emergency as contained in Section 305, I think, of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended. There's no part of that Constitution that gives the president the powers to unilaterally sack the democratic structure in a state. Look, when we allow President Bola Tinubu to get away with what he has done in River State, we are creating a very bad precedent. A bad precedent that the Attorney General of the Federation hinted at when he warned other state governors to be careful because that they may be next. This is not a democracy. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that on this platform. What we have is a dictatorship, and some people are clapping because today they think it is, it will get around one day, and all of us will now ask ourselves, how did we get there? We are getting there one step at a time. And because the president continues to test the ground. Benga, have you asked yourself, if Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is now the president of Nigeria, were to be the governor of Rivers State, will he take it? Will he take it? And how can you send the military? Send the military. Even if we go by the ruling of the Supreme Court, which a lot of people disagree with, but the Supreme Court gave definitive ruling and said, look, the allocation to Rivers State should be withheld because there was no proper appropriation. Now, you appointed a sole administrator that is well outside the remit of your powers. And this sole administrator, you have seized the allocation of Rivers State. There's no House of Assembly in Rivers State. Who is going to appropriate that money? On behalf is the man going to
present the budget.
Spend that money. And again, you carried out a charade at Asorok in the name of swearing a sole administrator. Who does that? With what constitution? How can you swear in a sole administrator?
Right.
And Asorok.
So, all these things are things we are here looking at the entire thing, and people are clapping that this is the way to go.
So what are the guardrails? How do we safeguard our democracy and enjoy everyone and make sure everyone is on the straight and narrow path and following constitutional order?
What the president is doing is to gradually and systematically dismantle the guardrails. In my column in the Vanguard last Thursday, that was the main focus as the president dismantles democracy guardrails. Every institution, as it were, has been captured by the executive. We no longer have a National Assembly. A National Assembly, the Constitution is very, very explicit on how to vote on the issue of emergency to third majority. How on earth, Benga, can you determine to third majority through voice vote? Does it make sense? There must be a head count to know who voted and who did not vote. We know what to third means in a chamber.
Yes, the numbers. Yeah.
That has 109 members. We know what to third of that number is. How can you determine that through voice vote? But this National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, deemed it fit to go that route because they know that possibly if they go to vote and count people, they may not get the numbers that to ratify that. They went against the Constitution, which they swore on oath to uphold in order to back a president who ab initio has taken a decision that is patently illegal. And then we have a judiciary that you can't, in all sincerity, say they will give a judgment looking at what the law says, rather than interpreting the body language of the president.
Mr. Mechi, some have argued and said the National Assembly doesn't have to be antagonistic to the government, that we have a situation where everyone is working in tandem for the progress of the country. What do you say to people that posit that position and school of thought?
You don't have to be antagonistic to the government, but don't forget that we have separation of powers, which is guaranteed. In a democracy, there are three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. Each of these arms of government have their distinct powers and functions and responsibilities. They should work collaboratively in order to have a government. But then they also act as checks and balances on each other so that the idea is to prevent a dictatorship. The idea is to prevent autocracy. So if the president is doing something that is patently wrong, it behoves the National Assembly to say, no, you are going the wrong way. That does not mean you are being antagonistic to the president. But you can't, because you swore on oath to protect the country, not to protect the president. You swore on oath to protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that oath is that at every point in time, you must be in a position to defend that Constitution and to give the people the right to a decent living. You didn't swear on oath that whatever the president brings, you must approve, whether it is right or wrong. So, we are in trouble in this country. And the way things are going, unless those in power advise themselves accordingly, they are pushing Nigeria to the edge.
All right. Mr. Amechi, thank you very much for telling us, sharing your thoughts with us. I guess in the next few hours, we'll see what the updates are regarding Natasha. We'll know what the update is regarding River State. But Natasha's one is the closest one. But also the Uromi killings, which is a conversation we'll be having next. I'll be heading to X to get some of your reactions to the governor's visit after this break. On the 27th of March 2025, unfortunately, 16 people were killed en route from Port Harcourt to Kano to celebrate Salah. These 16 people were said to be hunters. And unfortunately, what seemed to occur was that the search was conducted. Weapons were found within their possession, and without hard evidence, I would say, they mobbed them. There was a mob that just sort of set them ablaze, and that has gotten Nigerians talking. It's also revealed again how greatly divided we are in terms of ethnic, religious, and political lines. But Nigerians have started reacting to this, especially because Governor Okpebholo, the governor of Edo State, has paid a courtesy visit to Kano State, and he's working hand in hand with the governor of Kano State, Governor Abah Yusuf, to try and bring some measure of calm to ensure that there are no reprisal attacks and that he can, in a way, try to atone for what was done to the citizens. Unfortunately, some of the indigenes of Edo State don't seem to take what the governor has done lightly. They think that he's insulted them by going to Kano State, asking that all the times when other Southerners were being killed in the north, what was done. But not my words. Let's take a look at some of the reactions of Nigerians on X to the governor's visit. Andrew Chelsea says, the governor of Edo State said that increasing insecurity was part of his mandate for the people of Edo State. And you guys thought he was joking. This one is shots fired. Do you remember the mistake, the slip of the tongue in the interview the governor did when, during the elections in Edo State, where he said it was a slip of the tongue, but this was just shots fired on a lighter note. But on a much more serious note, let's go to our next tweet. And in the next tweet says, this is not just about mourning, it's about action. The government must strengthen security to prevent such tragedies. Every Nigerian deserves safety regardless of where they travel. Justice must be swift and the victims' families must not be forgotten. This is the tweet here. Let's go to our next tweet. And the next tweet, away from Kulu Stars, says, it's the right thing to do. I support this. I'm not a fan of jungle justice, but the claims of those victims should be properly investigated. Also, the same measure should be taken in providing those that murdered Deborah Samuel. Thank you. You see what is happening here. Away from Okpebholo Anselm Caesar's tweet, our next tweet reacting to this says, I don't have a problem with the governor of Edo State doing this show of shame and eye service, he says. My question is, has a northern governor done same when southerners, Deborah et al., were killed in the north? Question mark. Away from Cardinal's tweet, we have Ragnarok, who says there's no problem with him visiting them. However, many of the families of the alleged kidnapped, killed, and raped victims in Edo State has he visited. since Esa, Edo people have been complaining about the influx of unknown herdsmen into Edo State, allegedly destroying their farms, killing and kidnapping residents. What exactly did he do? This, the vigilante was allegedly dissolved to allow for his elections, and since INEC announced him, the state has not returned to knowing peace. These are some of the reactions. There are many other reactions, but I'm just going to take this last tweet. Tayo Ibrahim says, every day on this app, Christians versus Muslims, Yoruba versus Igbo or Hausa, men versus women, APC versus Labour and PDP. It takes turn like it's been programmed in a country that 80 to 85% are living in abject poverty. When will you guys unite for once and fight? When will it end? These are some of the reactions of Nigerians to what's been happening, and I'm going to bring in Benga and Joe into the conversation to get their thoughts on this. And Benga and Joe, you've seen these tweets, you've seen what they're saying. I think some of the most shocking things that we heard regarding this also is the fact that there are people who are saying, some are actually indirectly calling for reprisal attacks, saying that, you know, if nothing is being done, they should remember. There's some tweets that I could not take because of how insightful those tweets were, mentioning where certain camps are located in Edo State, certain northern camps. So I want to get your thoughts on this and what you think that all of this has exposed here in Nigeria.
Social media, it's a two-edged sword. There's a lot of good and there's bad. It does, but I support that last tweet from Tyre that says, look, we need to stop seeing things through the lens of ethnic coloration, and maybe it's poverty that is making us. Everything is not divisive. Everything is not religion. What happens to our humanity? 16 people died, and this is what you get when there's a bad situation and there are no consequences. You don't deal with it. You leave room for speculation. If we had followed through on every single case of herdsmen attack, on every rape, every issue of insecurity, people won't be thinking about this. There will be a united voice. If you saw the videos, I mean, how can 16 people die and you are still maybe in about it? And I understand their reasons for doing that based on a president, but it's terrible. We need to question our humanity. I saw a very terrible tweet yesterday, and this speaks to tribalism. A young man died in Ghana while fighting. Somebody went there and said, you know, he's a weak man from this tribe, that's why he died. And they always hide behind anonymous accounts to say this very cowardly. What happens to your humanity?
All right, let's bring in Jojo.
I think Benga said it all. But there's one key thing. I think we also addressed it at the start of the show earlier today, that what is worth doing for one is worth doing for all. So if during the Buhari regime or administration, these instances happened and nothing was done, just like one of the cases you mentioned on the tweet there, and now we're seeing it happen again, and it seems like there's more interest in this one. I think we can look at it from a positive aspect, that maybe this interest will spearhead and move the government to, going forward, continue to ensure they arrest the situation wherever it is. But it's a sad situation.
It is really a sad situation. Just to highlight here, we do not in any way, shape or form endorse mob justice, mob violence, or these 16 people who have been killed. And like I did say at the start of the show, two truths can coexist. One, the fact that we are where we are because there's been a state of insecurity that has not been dealt with and that has not been addressed, and that the people of Uromi Kingdom have been complaining. We've seen that then unearthed a lot of reports about insecurity challenges they're facing, and we're hoping that this would then, you know, sort of encourage the government to declare a state of emergency, not just in, you know, within security in Edo State, but around the country. We need to fix the problems with insecurity. And very importantly, the people who are a part of ensuring that they've cut short the lives of these 16 people be brought to justice. But that's what Nigerians are saying. Let us know your thoughts on X at News Central TV. We'll be out of the studio now. It's already a rainy morning here in Lagos, Nigeria. We have more shows coming. Jasiri is coming up next, but thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again with another 3-hour show. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Joe Hansen. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Benga Borough. See you tomorrow. Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.